Hi, I'm Natalia Munoz of Holyoke Media. I'm with my colleague Johan Vega of Holyoke Media. And today we're interviewing Pat Duffy, one of the three candidates running for the seat of state representative. That's the 5th Hampden County. This is the seat that has been occupied, Ms. Duffy, by your current boss, State Rep Aaron Vega. And he announced a few months ago he was not going to run again. And that created this opening. And here we are. You are one of three candidates. Yeah. Let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, well, first I want to thank you and thank Holyoke Media for being great community partners and for providing this service. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. And it's great to see both of you someday in person. So, I'm Pat Duffy. I currently work for State Rep Aaron Vega. I've held that position for almost 7 years now. It will be 7 years when he steps down. And I was not born in Holyoke. My parents chose a career of military service, so I've lived all over the United States. I moved here to this area, the Pioneer Valley, in the mid-90s to go to UMass Amherst to pursue my master's in sociology. And I really love it out here. I moved into an apartment in South Hadley Falls and bought my first home in Holyoke in 2004. And I've been involved in this community ever since, really loving it and loving serving it and loving the welcome I've gotten.
Ms. Duffy, I'm asking you this as a follow-up question because one of the other candidates, also named Pat Beaudry, says that Beaudry said he's a 6th generation Holyoke person. And as I asked him, why is that important? So I'm asking you the same question. Why is it important for you to spotlight that you weren't born in Holyoke?
Well, I get and respect why Holyokers admire generations of families who are here. That's one important aspect of Holyoke. I love it here too, and that's an important part of the community, and people are proud of that. I respect that. There's another tradition that is Holyoke's tradition of welcoming newcomers. I mean, this is a city of immigrants, and I have felt welcome here. It's what makes this city so great. And so I think the two can exist side by side and make the city richer. And, so I respect that. And I love all us newcomers too.
As you know, the Massachusetts legislature is organized by seniority, I think, when it comes to committee appointments. I was corrected in a previous interview that it's not necessarily seniority.
It's not necessarily seniority. Seniority works. I mean, it's like any other organization or bureaucracy, really. The Massachusetts legislature functions on relationships. It's 160 people. And getting a committee chair certainly comes partially from relationships that you have built and trust and respect that you build up like any organization. So it's not strictly seniority. There are folks who have been around, there are folks in leadership who've been around less time than others who are vice chairs of committees. But seniority certainly plays into it. But so I imagine you're getting to the question of, so it's going to be a freshman rep.
Yes, you're right. Ding, 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 bingo. So so as a new member, though, how do you, if you are elected, then how do you get your voice heard, also known as get the voice of Holyoke heard?
Absolutely. So this is where I have a huge advantage because I've been working, I'm Aaron's only staff person. So I've been working in the House of Reps for almost 7 years. The way you get legislation passed is working with other reps, working with colleagues, working with staff. So I'm very well known on Beacon Hill. We're doing the work right now. Formal session has been extended. We're going to be working into the fall. I mean, this is a time of economic and health crisis. So usually the legislature would formally end this July 31st, but both branches said, yeah, that's not a good idea. So we'll be back debating finally a full state budget. It's usually settled in July, but they've been passing incremental budgets. So Aaron will be back in there in the fall, and I'll be at his side supporting him, writing legislation with him, advocating for different budgetary pieces, finishing up pieces of legislation that we think have a really good shot this fall. That work has continued every day during the pandemic. We've been meeting with a group of like-minded legislators, so it's reps and staff, and I'm right in there and very well known. So yes, I'll be a freshman, but I'll be a freshman with a very good reputation, and with people ready and eager to work with me.
Are there any committees in particular that you would like to be a member of?
Oh yes, this is going to be my ask. And here's where seniority, a freshman rep doesn't always get their first ask, but I'll get one or two of them. Higher education, labor and workforce development, and then my big leap ask that you got to ask. I would like to be on healthcare finance. That's a very coveted committee. So, I'm going to put it out there and talk to the speaker about it. If I don't make it on there, I will develop relationships with the reps who are on there. But higher education and labor and workforce development, that is where my political roots come from. When I was at UMass, I got involved in I always loved politics and broader policies, but I got involved in local politics by getting involved in my union at UMass. It was during a time of previous big budget cuts, 2000, 2001. All the unions united together. I rose in leadership, and that turned a switch for me where I saw the power and impact you can have in your workplace, in your local municipality. And, I was sold. That's the work I wanted to do from then on. So those are the committees I would really like to serve on. Higher ed, you got to be supporting Holyoke Community College.
Okay, so that answers part of my question. How is being part of those committees beneficial to Holyoke?
Yeah, that's Holyoke Community College. Public education is my highest priority. And of course, the Holyoke Public Schools, and I will be doing tons of work for them. Being on that higher ed committee and pulling that focus to Holyoke Community College is good for us. It's good for the entire region. In this economic crisis, I see HCC, it's always been a real economic community treasure. It's key right now. This is how students who are not sure they want to have a campus with remote learning, this is how they can move on to higher education, take a step, keep their higher ed going. HCC works with our public schools and helps ready kids for the workforce, for higher ed. They have workforce training programs. They're very creative and responsive to what's happening around them. They're developing a professional program for the cannabis industry. Fantastic. They work with local agencies around food access and helping to alleviate homelessness. So they are going to be key in our economic recovery, just a vital resource. And I want to make sure that Beacon Hill is paying attention to them, that they're not just like, oh, higher ed, It's like, yeah, no, we've got a treasure here that's good for the whole region.
Of course, there's always the balance of there could be a lot of job training, but then there's not enough jobs.
See, I'm going to push back on that because what I hear from employers, what I hear from the Economic Development Council is that actually what there is there's a mismatch between workforce skills and jobs available. Of course, right now is a very difficult time. We've heard over the years, and as places are opening up, we have in Hampden County, here in Holyoke, Chicopee, Springfield, other places, families that have been isolated from training and opportunities. So they don't always have the workforce experience that they want to get. So those workforce training programs, that helps fill a gap. So small manufacturers, they've stayed open. The healthcare industry, HCC has a great CNA training program. And Westfield State has a nursing program. I need to look back on that, but there is also a local nursing program too. So I push back on that. I push back on that. Right now, yes, huge unemployment, but as places are reopening,
More job opportunities.
Yeah, I think the jobs are there.
What are your ideas on, how to navigate the continually changing rules on how we function as a society given this pandemic, where there are different factions? Some people are saying, I'm not wearing a mask, and other people are saying, you need to wear a mask. Where sometimes, yeah, let's open up the schools. No, let's do a hybrid. No, let's just all go remote now. Where do you stand on how we in Holyoke can help manage this pandemic?
On issues of reopening, the decision came down today that the schools are going to go remote, which I think is a good indication that Dr. Vasquez Matos, Dr. V, as people call him, he's showing good indications that he is responsive to the community, and that's what we need the receiver in that position to be. On questions of reopening businesses, entertainment venues, schools, we need to continue that conversation and have get some clear matrices of recommendations. That seems sort of all over the place, and I think that must just be, it's got to be just a continuing conversation. We inched forward, now got like some flare-ups. Holyoke is, the cases are going up in Holyoke. It's not one of the worst in the state, but this is happening in Hampden County. So we're going to inch back. So on those sort of economic education areas, I think that's a continuing conversation, and I would like to work on more concrete sort of matrices that we can talk about, like, oh, when we see this, then we can try, moving on to part 2 of phase 3, which is where I think we are now.
Where are you with, do you wear a mask or do you not wear a mask?
I think that's separate than the whole opening, reopening. Personal behavior, I mean, I don't want to get too much into policing other people, but I wear a mask. That is what public health officials are telling us to do. When I'm out, walking my dogs, I have a bandana around my neck, and then if somebody comes near me, I pull it up. I'll go to a friend's backyard and socialize. We stay separate. Put masks on if we're near each other. I'll do that, but I wear a mask. The public health data seems very clear on that, and I feel lucky that when I go to the grocery store, when I go to the drugstore, I see people wearing masks. I know that's not true everywhere. You hear stories, and I'm worried about making our frontline workers police that, these vulnerable folks, sometimes encountering angry people. So, yeah, I wear a mask.
Where are you, the pros and cons of Holyoke, once again, having someone appointed to be superintendent of the schools, to be the receiver?
Well, I mean, we all want local control. I am not going to make a promise. I mean, it's DESI's decision.
That's the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Sorry to be sorry to be wonky there.
Acronym queen.
I know. I will advocate. I will work with DESI and the administration. Be clear with me. What indications are you looking for? I will keep that communication up. I will meet with the receiver continuously, press him on his plans, what he thinks it's going to take, and bring his thoughts, plans, projects, bring that back to teachers, to students, their families, our elected school committee. That the state rep always has oh my God, I just completely lost that word. An obligation to the public schools, bringing in state funding, especially in a place like Holyoke, where so much of our funding comes from the central state. But in Holyoke, the state rep has an even bigger obligation because the state has taken over. And so I would have to play that key role. Every indication, what I've heard, what makes sense to me, is that the state is looking to see that the community is pulling together and prioritizing public education. So I will be mindful of that, seeing that happen, trying to find out what indications they're looking for that.
Well, they have said if they're looking for a certain percentage of high school students to graduate, they are, in terms of continuing towards the goal of not having to appoint somebody from Boston, but for the school committee to appoint the superintendent of schools. And to be clear, these are not questions that are in any way casting aspersions on the current receiver or superintendent. This is a technical question on when does Holyoke have agency again over its public schools.
Exactly, which is the continual goal. Of course, like they have these metrics, but they're all still suggested. The decision does go back to the state, which is why the state rep, state senator, we have to be on them and asking for clear indications, communicating strongly progress we see, etc. And if those targets start moving, challenging that.
Okay.
But, yeah, and there's suggestions. There's no like, oh, you hit this benchmark and we're gone. There's suggestions.
Yeah. So then that makes it like the Holyoke School Committee will be able to appoint a superintendent when Boston says so, and nobody's really clear what needs to happen for Boston to say so. So then you, if you're elected state rep, what then do you push for?
Clear communication. Advocating, lobbying, working with the school committee and the receiver too, if he's open to it, if it seems clear that I'm hoping that he feels his job is to eliminate himself as a state receiver. And if I see indications that that's not true, that he doesn't feel that's his job, I'm pushing back on that. I have no reason not to have good feelings right now, especially with his recent responsiveness. And I've met him a couple times, and I'm optimistic.
On the issue of the federal races, the federal primaries, let's start with the congressional race, the first congressional district. Do you want to say who you support and why?
I am staying out of every other primary. I'm staying out of it.
All right, I still have to ask. So,
Of course.
how about for Senator of Massachusetts? Do you want to say about?
I'm staying out of every primary.
What about for president?
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And, come September 2nd, I'm pretty sure that Massachusetts has the last primary, state primary, so we'll know across the country who the candidates are. September 2nd, I am going to be working to get Joe Biden, Kamala Harris in the White House, and 2 chambers of Congress that are led by Democrats. I will unapologetically say that I feel that this current presidency has been a disaster. I don't like how he conducts himself, and we have measurable, I am disheartened and a little frightened by his handling of this crisis.
I think that you confused the dates, so we may have to edit that. I think you said like November 2nd, primaries.
No. As of September 2nd, when the primaries are over, I am full on working on the supporting every single Democratic nominee.
Okay, all right. So I misunderstood. Okay, no, you're right.
I wasn't clear.
No, it's okay. I think that pretty much does it for my questions. Now I'm going to turn it over to Johan Rashi Vega.
Hey, Johan. Oh, you're mute. He's mute.
Hello, Pat. Thank you so much for being here with us and
thank you. This is great.
For sharing your thoughts. So we were thinking about the many different angles people in Holyoke share in terms of if they were born in here or not, if they were raised here or not, if they are immigrants or not.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this plays always an important role in terms of the representation and the level of advocacy, and sometimes even how much are they taking in consideration for the purposes of services or acknowledgement or pretty much anything that is important to be included for as part of the community of the city. When we see that right now this race has only 33.3% of female representation, that's an issue. When we see that this fifth Hampden candidates are all white,
yep,
that also sends another message.
Yep.
So, and this has been a set of random questions, a little bit uncomfortable. I reckon.
Yeah.
What it means white privilege to you?
Oh, I think it's very real. I am a student of American history. And, when we talk about institutional racism, I think sometimes there are people who get defensive because they think we're talking about personal prejudices. And, those exist, of course, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about institutional racism. We're talking about the way systems, the economy, just are imbued. Sorry, it goes back to our legacy of slavery. Communities of color have just been put at a disadvantage. A good example is the GI Bill, right? The veterans came back from World War II. I support government programs like that that lift people up. I think it's good for the whole economy. I'm a big, a rising tide lifts all boats. But we can look back at that now, and it went to white GIs. Here these Black soldiers were overseas fighting for liberation from a genocidal country and a genocidal regime, and they come back to America, they're not being treated with equality. There's good documentation, housing policies, the redlining, and we have to admit that the impact is felt today. I mean, I'm just a middle-class person, not a ton of wealth, comfortable, but not a ton of wealth. But that comes from going back a couple of generations. That comes from the fact that my parents were able to help me go to college, so I didn't have a lot of debt. That, your assets across generations impact where you're at. I can drive around and get pulled over by the police, and it's probably going to be, a relatively peaceful, encounter. So I think, it's very real. You can't be a student of American history and not see that white privilege is very, very real.
In a totally different topic, in your campaign, you utilize compassion, experience, results as your motto, the way you are campaigning. How this translates in the goals that you look to achieve should you become the state representative for the 5th Hampden?
So all work I've done leading up to this, work I want to do moving forward, I've got 3 principles that I want to stand by. Equity, thinking about equity, differing impacts of policy, talking to communities of color, in this diverse and partially segregated city. Not totally segregated, but, there is segregation in the city. How are policy impacting people differently? What are unintended consequences of different laws we're passing or different programs we're supporting? Thinking about equity. Building coalitions and being a community organizer. That is all about compassion. I lead with my heart. So that's what that means to me. The experience, the experience that I've been lucky to have, both working in unions, serving on local boards here in Holyoke, the relationships I've built, and then being in the State House. I got the job as legislative aide because I had great relationships in Holyoke and had worked with so many different people, not the other way around. Now it's, those relationships and experiences have only been enriched by working for the state rep and working on Beacon Hill. So experience and results. You can talk to a lot of people in Holyoke, and I've helped them out very directly. Plus, Aaron has always treated me as a partner, and we've had great successes on Beacon Hill, and I can build on them. I'm expecting to. So.
And talking about that symbiotic relationship with State Rep Aaron Vega, how do you envision your staff, your team, thinking about that diversity and equity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reality is I will be assigned one staff person. There will be a budget line for one staff person. I certainly will take, bilingualism is going to be very important. Someone who has a different experience than I do, that's going to raise high in the qualities that I'm going to consider. And in addition, there are always interns who get, it's a very enriching experience to work in a state rep's office. We've had amazing interns and have been able to build an amazing team. And even, there's the official interns, there's the one paid staff person, but state rep is a team player. So you have a team around you, and I will make sure, I always have, and I always will, my team, the voices I listen to, the places I go for advice will be from all over Holyoke. I have those relationships already. There's, so.
Okay, so I think for the sake of time, we are pretty much almost done. We just would like to have this last opportunity for you to address the public and explain what it will be the reasons for the electors to vote for Pat Duffy for state rep.
So, everyone in Holyoke, thanks so much for listening. I would like your vote on or before September 1st. People are voting now. So I would like to ask for your vote. These are tough times, but I know as a community, we can pull together. We've done it before. I'm very good at that. And the reputation, you know me, and the reputation that I have in Holyoke, you know, I'm hardworking, I'm dependable, I care about people, I'm a good listener. I have that same reputation on Beacon Hill. So you know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to take care of Holyoke and fight for Holyoke and prioritize Holyoke. So I would ask for your vote for a state representative.